and woke, ratchet and woke, ratchet and woke, ratchet and woke.
Wake it up out there. You already know what we on. It is Ratchet and Woke podcast. Once again, back at it. Unlearn the world. Lil MC. Follow us, Ratchet and Woke podcast, on the YouTubes as well as the Instagrams. You can also follow us or email questions, comments, topics, all of the things. Ratchet and Woke podcast at gmail.com. We're in here before the holidays because holiday shit is about to start. So why not just do this and get it done with and over with and done and over with and done?
Cut, break, check the gates. I'll give us our sponsor. Our sponsor is DuckNTales.
Yes.
DuckNTales
Tell us more about DuckNTales.
DuckNTales, it's a different sort of treat. I think everyone is used to topless bars, you know. Everyone wants to see a nipple. Everyone wants to see a titty. But we cannot kink shame because there's people that have different kinks and desires.
Bottoms only.
And DuckNTales is for the bottoms. And the reason why, it's like Chippendales and DuckTales because they never wear pants put together. So if you have that craving to see some bottomless, not mimosas, but I'm trying to think of a play on the word mimosa.
Bottomless mimosas. Hell yeah, they just serve you a mimosa bottomless, but
that is a good idea. Yep.
Yeah. Like you have to pay per drink because it's not ongoing, but it's served to you by somebody who is bottomless.
Bottomless, yes. Wow, that's deception and sexy.
Exactly. There you go. All right, let's get into some life things. I don't know what you have for yourself.
No, don't worry. It's gonna be super hard for you to read the chicken scratch.
Holotropic.
We're gonna start with you though. We're gonna start with you.
What about me?
Your trip to New York to go to the hip hop ed. Conference.
So all right, shout out to the Hip Hop Education Center and Martha Diaz. For putting together a really dope retreat. This was a hip-hop education retreat. Martha Diaz, for those who don't know, runs the Hip-Hop Education Center, and they've been kind of on the front lines of developing national guidelines for teaching hip-hop in schools, kindergarten through 12th grade.
So let me ask you.
Yeah.
So we're in a conversation this up.
Yes, we are.
Yeah. So when has this become a thing? Like having hip hop pedagogy in schools? What's the value in that? Why do you think people want to do that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been a movement for like the last 20 years or more, right? Like even before in the golden era in the 90s, people were kind of talking about teaching hip hop in schools, but we were still fighting for legitimacy as an art form. Now we're here. Now we are pop culture. Now we are the culture, right? It's only appropriate that considering how big of an audience hip hop has, that academia kind of make space.
Do you think there's a lot of pushback though? Because people still might.
I think there will be. I mean, I think there's a lot of, we're hip hop educators all the time. So we deal in like legitimacy,
trust deficits, stigma.
Identity politics, all of those things. And I have to, as an administrator, go in and talk to other administrators and try to validate that. I think that this is on the larger scale, but you're dealing with people who get it.
Yeah.
You're dealing with people who are already academics or well known in their field. A lot of the people who
There's
are
not
part
a lot of people that are like this too. It's like to be a hip hop, like to be actually of the culture and be a talented hip hop artist in whatever element it is.
Very few.
And then also be educated. I mean, it's a really cool,
it's very far and few between, but it's a really dope group of people. There's a lot of intersections, like we're next level because you're going to Greece. I went to Barbados. There's a lot of people who from next level there. There are a lot of artists that we'd be familiar with or actually active in the culture. There are people who are just straight up educators who are teaching and want artistry in their school. So there's a lot of support on this. But yeah, I think there were people there at the retreat who already have hip hop programs to get degrees, right? So
that's really what it is. It's kind of like a pathway to legitimize hip hop education in a way that you would actually get a degree as a hip hop educator.
Yeah,
the same way as you would get a teacher certification,
or just being creating career pathways and creating academic pathways more than anything else through middle school, high school, going into college where you can major in this not only as a cultural practitioner teaching the culture and the history, but also in any of the elements elements.
Oh, cool.
Right? Like we were more focused on music education, so we
Yeah.
didn't bring up dance, we didn't bring up graffiti. It was more music education, which is DJing, beat making, production, songwriting, like all of those things,
Yes.
right? Concert pathways or live music production.
cool.
Those are all pathways that can fit into hip hop.
Nice.
So if we're able to create that kind of guide through that, it's going to have to require where academics have common core standards
Yes.
for, you know what I'm saying?
You have to create
We're
that.
creating the common core standards
Nice.
for teaching hip hop in schools.
Cool.
Because a lot of the people who may want to teach hip hop may not be practitioners.
Yeah, no, I think it's important because I mean, number one, I think if you teach hip hop, you should be a practitioner. But I understand that maybe you just
Right.
want to like utilize it. I actually like the lights like this.
Okay, cool.
But I do think it's important because I think that oftentimes like we speak about this, how like you could be a really dope, talented hip hop artist, but maybe you don't have the foundation or the structure to really articulate it in a way that is professional enough or to a certain level that it needs to be at.
Right.
And so if you're setting these standards, I think it'll just like amplify, you know, the hip hop education space in general.
Yeah, I mean, the way I see it is twofold. It's one, on one side, you are educating and training artists to be educators in the classroom, teaching, right? And now they have an actual pathway to do that if and when the music doesn't pop off the way they need to, or as
In
an
tandem,
add,
yeah.
as a value add to the music, right? The same way you have it, the same way I have it. It's a value add to the brand that we have as musicians. But then on the other side, you have people who don't know hip hop. They're not practitioners, but they recognize that this would be valuable to utilize to get to their
Kids interested. I
Right.
know, but I kind of feel like there's a danger in that because then you get a bunch of people in the theater department who want to get paid the big grants for hip hop education work.
Exactly. So
I don't
you gotta sift through that, and that's things. These are kind of some of the conversations that we brought up during the weekend. Funding as it relates to that, people who aren't of the culture getting funding to do this, how we can kind of serve and add vendors or people who can help them, right? Like we helped theater classes in the past as Hip Hop for Change. We've done that before, but making it on a national level where people who are trying to study or teach hip hop have resources. Those resources can be these guidelines, but they can also be other artists who can come into the classroom and help teach or facilitate workshops, activities, all of those things, but creating a national standard by which we understand how people should be graded, how they can get degrees, all of those different things. So it was a really great retreat. Shout out to everybody who showed up and came through. We did a lot of conversations. We did a lot of unpacking. We set agendas for the next time people were to convene, additional resources in terms of presenting at conferences and others, just kind of what the game plan is to get the work out there. It was in the Rockefeller estate, which was weird, like for a lot of different reasons, because Rockefeller as a family is like very responsible for a lot of things. And and there was a spot called the Temple. And the dude who was the tour guide never gave us an answer on what it was a temple for. And we were asking him multiple times. He never answered it. He never acknowledged the question. It was really weird.
Ooh,
so there
creepy.
was that, you know what I'm saying? But aside from that, it was a beautiful estate. They took care of us. They fed us. We kicked it. Like, you have like, artists from all over. Like it's all over the, East Coast, Midwest, West Coast, Los Angeles, wherever. It was just a lot of us building, and it was a lot of the homies out there. Good to see them, and it was cool. So I'm really happy to have been part of that. I'm really happy for Hip Hop Change to have a seat at that kind of table. This is something that I've been personally kind of hoping for. Like, let us be at the table of national hip hop education and what that looks like.
important.
You know what I'm saying? So I'm happy about that. But then you've been going through a journey. So tell us about what I'm seeing, holotropic. Tell us about that.
I know, I'm gonna be the segue queen. That's why I made it so hard to read. So
Okay.
no, yeah. At least I turn the lights back on. I know. I'm like not feeling myself at all in life, but I guess the discomfort in the growth. But holotropic breath work is, you're kind of familiar with breath work, right?
I am. That's
Yeah,
right.
so breath work comes in many, many forms. Have you ever done any like long versions of breath work that have been more than 15 minutes?
I've tried. Yeah, I followed this Tibetan method not too long ago. I watched something on Tibetan Buddhism and this kind of breath work, and they did something that they said had never been before filmed. So I was looking at that. I was reading some of the instructions because I went down the rabbit hole, and I did that. So yeah, I've done breath work. It's very interesting, but I'd love to hear your experience.
No, yeah. So I mean, like regular breath work is one thing, and I think when you do these really long, like multi-hour long experiences, it becomes like a hallucinogenic experience, or really whatever you want it to be, depending on where you're at. But I had just come off of my first somatic therapy, and it fucking ripped a hole through my entire perception of my being. So I was just like, let me just sit with that for 2 days and see how I feel.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's 4 hours. It's 4 hours. It's a long time.
So look good. It's a good amount of time.
I mean, think about it, right? Like, you're just focusing on breathing. It's a long time. But the first hour, I was late and I was pissed, but I got there. It's like really just like, you got to get yourself in the space to even be there. Like, if you was just like out in traffic and you know dealing with life, and then you're like, all right, I'm ready to breathe. Like, nah. Like, actually, some of the breathwork sessions I've done that are 1 hour before, you're not even supposed to eat or drink or do anything. Like, you're supposed to be like empty. Yeah.
Because like a cleansing. I mean, you're putting yourself in an altered state of consciousness through breath, as opposed to any sort of drug or ayahuasca ceremony. This is literally just air.
I mean,
oxygen.
You're doing the same shit that happens when you do drugs. You're just like, activating different parts of your brain that, pineal gland activation type shit. But
Kundalini, which we'll talk about later on too.
Yeah, exactly. Right after. So it's you spend an hour kind of like preparing and getting in the space, and then it's 2 hours, and it's a specific type of breathing. It's like in through the mouth and out through the mouth. And so I was super late because I was dealing with this crazy situation. Shout out, Craig.
Craig, where you at?
Oh my God. So everyone had water. They had blankets. They had pillows. I had nothing.
Oh man.
So I was so cold and I was so thirsty. And so when you're breathing in and out through your mouth, it makes you even more thirsty. That's why I always like nose breathing. So I was just like, all right, I'm literally about to thug this out. Like, I'm going to be super uncomfortable. I was cold. I was like, and I had no pillow. Ugh. So I was like, yo, can I get, so they gave me this thin little thing and this like shitty little pillow, but like I have back problems. So like people usually have more than one pillow to put under your knees to help support. So I was in I was not comfortable,
Okay.
But when I do my breathwork sessions with my other homeboy, David Paulman.
Yes. Shout out David Paulman.
He tells me, like, don't get too comfortable because you'll fall asleep. And the whole point is you want to stay awake. So I was like super uncomfortable. Like, and I hadn't eaten that day. So I was like starving, thirsty, and cold. But I was like, I know this is like the space that I need to be in order to like get the experience that and my brain was fucked up. So I was like, okay, I'm just like this empty fucking bottom of the hierarchy of needs, but not really like so whatever. So first, like probably like for the first hour, you're just like like seriously for an hour.
It's almost like hyperventilating.
It is that's the type of breathing. So I'm not gonna like give away everything that it is because
I mean, give us the takeaways. So you finished the breathing. What were some of the experiences, insights for you?
The first hour I was just like, this is uncomfortable, holy fuck, when is this over? It's part of it.
You're
what I'm saying? Like,
at that point,
why am I here? Like, not you, just like all the things, like you just gotta work through that shit. But like I'm in a space with hella other people. And so what he told us when going into it was like, yo, people are gonna, you might hear people laughing, you might hear people screaming, you might hear them crying, you might hear them making, so people were making all sorts of noises, and it was all in tandem with the music. Because the music was like super tribal. Heavy tribal.
Do you know what, was it in a specific frequency? Did they tell you that?
I have the playlist. So that's why I was like, yo, I could guide you through this if you wanted to sometime, because it was really wild. Like I was like I said, I've been in like discomfort for like the past month, like internally, like just like something is happening inside of me and it's so uncomfortable. And that's like exactly what I felt. So everyone was making these noises and chanting, and I was like pissed. Because I'm like, fuck them. They just fucking out here doing this shit. And I was like, I'm not going to make a noise because I'm not going to do what they do. Like I had this like whole internal thing in my brain. Like I'm not going to do what
you were being like contrarian?
Yeah.
In space? Like,
it's like all the shit that is wrong with me, like.
But you were in the environment to have to confront it, but it's no one guiding you. It seems like they're just facilitating the space, but you got to do the work.
The whole thing was he tells you about it and everything, but he's not guiding. He's watching.
Right.
He's watching us.
Who's he?
the guide, and I didn't know until after.
Like,
I was like, oh
holy
my
shit,
God.
okay.
So people were doing all these, and it was like, and I was like,
They was going Super Saiyan.
They was going Super Saiyan.
Oh shit.
Like really like, ah, like crazy, you know what I'm saying? And it was like the music was like boom, like it was like it felt like I was in a fucking like Amazon or some shit. Like shit was just fucking going.
It's to put you in a trance.
It
ultimately,
did.
like
And
the breathing, all of that. Yeah,
yes,
okay.
And everyone's like breathe. Like when one person would breathe heavy, everyone would. So we were all like synced
yeah.
up. And finally, I was like, what do I like? Fuck this. What do I want to do? And I was like, I want to like sing a tone because the music was fucking fire. Okay. So I would just like.
He was trying to Shazam during the holotropic.
Yo, I was just, I got the
this?
playlist. I asked and he gave it to me. He's like, I'm gonna send it to you because it was dope. But no, like chanting is so like calming to me. To like hit a tone and just hold it, like all of that just always feels so good. So I just started doing that. And then I was like, all right, I feel better, you know, like and then everyone else was quiet and I was like, fuck y'all, I'm gonna keep singing. Like it wasn't like singing, but you're just like, like dope vocally things. Cause that's just like what I like to do, you know? So I was like, I'm gonna do what I like to do. Other people were laughing. And then I was like, all right, I'm feeling better now. Like, why the fuck am I here? And it was just like, I'm here because I'm trying to like.
Did the spirits reveal that to you while you were there? Did they talk to you?
I mean, I'm getting to it.
But now that you have the playlist, do you like use it in your car and like just try to go into the holotropic trance in the car?
No, that would be fucking dangerous. It would be so dangerous. I'd probably crash.
Oh shit.
I was like, I said the word free and I said the word mind and I said it out loud and it like, I just started crying.
Whoa.
A
Okay.
lot. Like, and I don't cry.
Right.
Like water drip, like leaking out of my face. Not like snotting everywhere, but just like
you wasn't ugly
sobbing.
crying. It was just like,
it was a sob, you know, because
Okay.
it's like, but it was just because I don't know. I just realized I was like, like the somatic therapy experience basically showed me that like I put all this fucking shame on myself when I was young, and that's what led me to walk into all of this other traumatic shit.
Yeah.
And so when I realized like maybe like my parents were strict with me and they were controlling and societal pressures and whoop-de-whoop, but like ultimately it was me that put all this shame on myself. I tell kids in my songwriting class all the time, it's words have power, obviously, right? So I never start a songwriting workshop without emphasizing the sacred nature of words. But I also emphasize it's not just the words you say, it's the words that are told to you that you choose to accept. Mm-hmm. Even the words that you're telling yourself that you are choosing to accept, because that creates the constructs that you then live by. That creates the filter by which you see reality. So if you're in a state of fear, if you're in a state of shame, if you're in a state of any of those things, which coincidentally enough, religion gives you, you're gonna see things through that lens, and you're gonna be perpetually in a state of, am I good enough for these things? And this is what creates self-sabotage. This is what creates a lot of other things. So I guess, did you leave there feeling better? Did you leave there with more insight? Is it to be continued? I mean, like, basically it just dawned on me, like, it was kind of like the key, right? Like, right. I'm the one that is like, I can't wait for someone else to heal me. Like, no one's coming to save you. Have to go back in time through somatic therapy, through EMDR, and like hug the version of me that cast that spell on that shame spell on myself. Yeah. And so it was like in that moment I left there and I just like was, and I had another hour of that, of breathing.
So you left early?
No. We were there. I'm just saying within that first hour is when I had that realization.
Oh shit. And then you still had another hour.
Breathing. And then the last hour was like coming back and like getting water, going pee. Like, you're not going to the bathroom for like a while, Right. But I left there like, I got to take like really good care of myself today. I got weed. I went to bed. I watched Dune. I ate some Thai food. I didn't look at my phone. I was like, I got a cookie, Mm-hmm. I was just like, but ever since then, it's just been like, it's really hard for me to like be around people.
It's intense. It's like it's opened some shit up. You put you into like a different world and other dimension.
Yeah, because then it's like now people want this version of me that I feel like I'm literally trying to let go of. So it's hard to socialize with people that know this version of me that no longer really exists because I know the truth now, but I still haven't completely shed the next.
It's like the
person.
trapeze. It's like you let go of one rung.
Yes.
And you have to climb onto the other rung, right?
Right.
But you're not there yet.
Yes.
So mentally, you're just like in that purgatory almost.
Kind of.
Of waiting to grab the other rung.
And then stand in like, this is me now and this is how I interact
exactly.
with you. So
yeah.
I need time away from people still. Like I can interact like through this kind of like medium, you know what I'm saying? Like I can interact through text, I can interact through DMs, but like actually being in other people's energy, like it's too overwhelming for me, and I just am not like ready to do it. Like unless you're like legit.
I mean, it's a good thing it's holiday season, so you could hibernate and chill and literally put yourself in another world. But speaking of other worlds, fucking aliens.
Seriously.
They're here.
I know. And they're called UAPs now.
Fucking huge congressional hearing about coordination between different intelligence agencies about the existence of UFOs, is what we grew up knowing them as.
Unidentified anomalous phenomena.
Now they're UAPs, right?
And it's basically just saying that they don't know if these crafts, these, space, well, we don't even know if they're spacecrafts, right?
I mean,
they're just crafts
exactly.
that are not, they are not made from human technology that we're aware of.
Right.
So the whole purpose is to be like, yo, if you guys are out here making these crazy spinning on their sides, coming out the ocean, crafts, then you need to let us know. Otherwise, we all need to get up on this shit and realize there's some otherworldly
There's
shit.
some non-human intelligence out there.
Like
that's
you
really,
said, I like the idea that because all of this, most of it is like, okay, first of all, behold a pale horse.
Yep.
Been talking on this shit
William
forever.
Cooper. Yep.
Okay, the Area 51 documentary that I stole from the library and did a report on.
Boom.
Talked about this shit. Okay, Fire in the Sky, but like all of this is like
loved Fire in the Sky.
Yeah, such a good fucking movie. But like it's all ex-militaries or like people from the Pentagon. Like it's not like some weird like Bigfoot,
yeah, these are all like these are all people in the intelligence community, military, all of that.
Yeah, and they're saying like, and a lot of them are saying that we see shit come out the fucking water.
They had video.
Yes, and it sucks these days because we never know. Everything could be CGI, could be AI.
I would have loved for them to have had this revelatory thing before the advent of social media.
But they have been showing us things. Like there's been UFO sightings that everyone's like, okay, but it could, because it's hard to capture.
It's not,
but if it looked perfect, we'd still be like, what? That's Star Wars, like Steven Spielberg.
We've been conditioned
down
to disbelieve our own eyes.
Yeah,
like, you know what I'm saying. I mean,
but that's why I think the congressional hearing was validating. Yeah, because it was like documentation.
Like they're spending money on like a real ass conversation.
It's on NBC News. Dad, I was trying to tell my dad because he's such a fucking naysayer. And I'm like, it's on like a legitimate news platform. It's not like,
some people will never believe.
The Onion or something.
Speaking of which, The Onion just bought InfoWars, which is crazy.
I don't know what that means.
So InfoWars was the news outlet that was ran by Alex Jones, who is a very well-known conspiracy theorist.
I know him.
And
but I don't know what does it mean that what significance is that?
He was sued for saying that people in Sandy Hook, the kids who were killed in Sandy Hook, were crisis actors.
Yes.
So he was sued by the families and lost.
Yes.
And in order to pay restitution to the families, he had to sell off InfoWars.
Oh!
So InfoWars bought The Onion. Onion bought InfoWars, which is like really crazy.
That's
like it's just
dope.
You know what I'm saying? So I said I posted. I said at least the conspiracy theories will be funny now. Right, like instead of some crazy.
That was
shit.
not funny. That's
but I mean, I want to keep up on this because aliens has been my shit since I was in the 5th grade, and like,
oh, it's your shit.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's been like my jam, like fucking government.
You and like everyone else.
And alien, no, because some people don't believe in aliens. Some people don't even have the brain to deal with aliens. They're dealing with other real shit going on.
No,
right?
I think this podcast is really going to become a conspiracy theory podcast.
Alien Watch podcast.
I swear to God, we changed the name to that. We're about to go crazy. Like
we'll be out of here in a minute.
Ratchet and Woke.
We got music though.
Okay, yeah.
Music happened.
We just talked a lot about this, but we can do another.
Well, I mean, it's like just straight shot. Kendrick dropped album people have been waiting for. It's here. It's now. People fuck with it. A lot of thoughts, a lot of feedback. Some people are saying it's trash on the extreme
Are they
side.
really, though?
They really. I've seen at least a dozen people say it's trash.
Wow. I guess I have. That hasn't come across my timeline
Yeah, so
at all. I've seen nothing but gratitude, but I gotta. I'm in my echo chamber of my algorithm.
I just think that people also, but I also think that people just want to be contrarian.
I mean,
to
what?
anything that's
Totally.
popular. So
and
there's that.
I honestly have really only given the full album one listen, and then I've listened to like several of the songs that I like. A couple times, but I need to give it another thorough listen. And it's one of my favorite Kendrick projects. Like, I think Good Kid, Mad City will always be my favorite.
That would be the one, yes.
But I think that a lot of these songs, especially when we hear them outside, it's gonna take on a life of its own. I think the features that he has is really significant. I think what he's trying to do with this album, making it something that is palatable and digestible and still have a deep underlying meaning in what he's trying to actually do for the sake of the culture and for community and for violence and for reforming gang violence.
I think that's just part of his brand at this point, right? Like, it's not like he's going out of his way to make these statements. That's who he is.
Totally.
At his core.
It's very authentic to who he is.
So he's leveraging what he already knows and what we already know him for with making slaps, right? Not just like super conscious music, but making beats and rapping over beats that people would play in the club.
I love the beats because they were simple.
Yeah.
Like, I want to talk about the production.
Okay.
You're not getting insane production. You're getting like, and it's very Bay Area-esque.
Yeah.
Because if you think about Bay Area, what do you think of it? When I think of Bay Area beats, it's like just a really simple but perfect melody. Like, it's like,
it's melodic, it's heavy bass, 808s, but it's hand claps.
And it's basic drums. It's really,
super basic
everything
drums.
is stripped down, but everything has to be like the best of the best.
Everything is in its place and it stands out. And then paired with like just LA like sensibilities, you know what I'm saying? And like, I mean, he's crafting or he's highlighting this new emerging West Coast sound that includes stuff from the Bay. It includes what's going on in LA. It includes a lot. And
Latin culture represented. I was super hyped off that.
Shout out for the mariachi band and like all of that. He put Peso on. He put Lefty Gunplay, who are both Latino rappers. How you feel about him is completely up to you.
It would have been cool to have some more female rappers. I'll say that.
That would have been dope. You know what I'm saying? But like just even showcasing the rappers that he did showcase, he put on for the West. It felt like the audio version of the Pop Out.
Yeah,
concert.
It definitely.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that was cool. I appreciated all of the things that he was weaving in. I have to listen to the album again to give it like a full on experience. But everything I heard, I love this record that he had about TDE, where he was talking about he wanted to copy Ab-Soul style because I knew that. Like I've been listening to Kendrick since like Section 80 or the album before that, the project he did before that, where if you listen to early Kendrick, it all sounds like Ab-Soul. You know what I'm saying? So it was really cool for him to at least nod to that, especially on the heels of Ab-Soul having just dropped an album.
And that album went crazy,
and it was an amazing
really
album. It was like, but again, I think for both of them, especially coming from the camps they come from,
the production
changed the entire tone of how people receive them.
It's really putting like West Coast production on the map. Like I would not be surprised if we completely move away from drill and trap. You're not going to hear any more Ice Spice, bitch. Bye.
It's very likely. You know what I'm saying?
I swear to you.
And it's only a person like Kendrick who can make that shift in the culture.
I mean, Detroit drill is really reminiscent of Bay Area music anyways.
I mean,
Detroit
there's a lot
drill
of synergy between Detroit and the Bay.
But I just think that like we're going to really move away from that trap. I think the trap sound is going to...
I think it's going to be outdated. I think any Atlanta-based sound is now going to come second.
Atlanta is going to become like funk, PHONK, which is like Memphis.
Yeah, Memphis, I mean, it could be a Sean. What's it called? All this is going to do is just move the standard to a different sound.
Yeah,
whatever whatever, you know what I'm saying? Because trap has been the sound, or the South, whatever's coming out of the South has been the dominant sound for over almost 20 years.
Really though? Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? So now we have the West, particularly LA, having an amazing year, whether it's Ab-Soul, Kendrick, Tyler, the Creator. Like LA is really fucking rocking. Yeah. So now I think that's going to set a new standard. We'll see how it plays out in 2025. I'm interested in it. But then you also have here women in it. What's that?
Oh, yeah. And women in hip hop. No, I have a prediction. I mean, and I think I was going to speak on this before Kendrick's album dropped. So
Okay.
this was something I wanted to speak on. But I think that it plays into it as well. And I'd be interested to see your thoughts too. But what I predict is everything that's going on politically.
Yep.
And everything that's going on just globally, I'll say.
Yeah.
I think that the era of hypersexualized women is going to slowly fizzle out.
Yes.
I think that there will always be a space for it. And I think that the club promoters and that certain brand of hip hop where people literally are just out there trying to shake ass, right? I was just thinking about this with the Kendrick album, right?
Okay.
Like how we were talking about how some people are Drake over Kendrick even after what he's been able to accomplish, simply because Drake makes more danceable music, and as a dancer you might be more inclined, I don't want to speak for everyone, but you might be more inclined to gravitate towards musicality versus the culture and versus substance.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even think so. To respond to what you're saying, Academics just brought up a really good point in one of his more recent episodes where he was saying music is no longer an active listening activity.
Period. It's not.
Right? So people are listening to music while doing something else.
Yes.
So when that's the criteria, it almost behooves you to just have dope beats and not really say anything of meaning, and that's how you're going to get the replay
Which
value.
is what you were saying with Kendrick. He dumbed it down enough.
Exactly.
So that you could be passively listening, and then something, and this is what I always wanted to do with music. Like I wanted to like get into the low vibrational music, but then slip in some high vibrational stuff so that it could get to the people that need to hear it. Because the people that are already philosophizers,
you're speaking to an echo chamber. Right. Like, if you're a Talib Kweli, right? And I grew up with Talib Kweli. I listened, but his music, Mos Def's music, there's certain artists that we know in the culture that are speaking to what we call the earthy, right? Like we even like have these reductionist,
the hyper-conscious people that are already there.
Exactly. So like you're preaching to the converted.
But if you actually want to make an impact for people that need it, which is what Kendrick is doing by bringing these super underground but still up and coming people that are out there, that the people in LA respect, the people out here in Oakland respect, that are actually going to speak to the younger generation that are living in war zones that need to see mentorship from someone like Kendrick. They're going to hear it and they're going to receive it because they recognize that he understands and they're not getting preached to.
Exactly.
But that's what anyways, I'll pivot into the women in hip hop.
It's very accessible. So yeah, the women in hip hop.
So I just think that I think we've reached, similar to like the trap music, I think we've reached the end of the road for hypersexualized, super ratchet female rap dominating the mainstream. I just don't think, I think it's almost, what's the word oh my gosh. Tone deaf. Thank you.
Yes.
To myself.
Yeah.
It's almost tone deaf because it's like, we're losing our reproductive rights out here.
Yeah.
Like hypermasculinity is at an all-time high. Like it's crazy out here. We have a rapist who is a president. It's I mean, yeah. It's insane. So I don't really, personally for me, and I can't speak for everyone, I don't really want to hear people rap about their pussy. Unless it's, don't free my pussy, don't touch my pussy. But I don't want to hear about anyone like fucking up your pussy, hypersexual shit, because it's like, dude, we got shit we got to do. Right. We need to that's really safeguard our reproduction. Like we really got to do something with meaning, or else we're going to go back to the 1920s. That's how I feel. Like it feels like.
I think our music needs to reflect those values. I think there needs to be artists who are willing to create anthems for that energy.
And it's not like it has to be super preachy. I just think that we need to start being like, yo, if we don't change what we talk about, we're not going to change how people perceive us.
Bingo.
And I've always felt like, yo, it's my pussy. I can talk about it if I want. It's my body. Like I've always had lyrics like that. But at the same time, you can still have that. But it's like, yo, we have to show them that we're not just beings to be objectified, that we can be president.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing that really, like whatever, I don't even want to talk about that, but it's like we've never seen a woman be a leader of this country. And they have women leaders in a lot of first world
Mexico
countries.
just elected a
but it's like
president.
out of it just we'll make excuses all day, but really at the end of the day is like we don't trust women to lead. but we trust them to do a lot of shit.
Yeah, I think we need to move away from that narrative. And I think that the music industry in particular, but in media as a whole, needs to highlight and amplify women who are not of that ilk, right? Who can be thinkers, can be intellectual, can be entertainers.
And the thing that's
and
really
be
wild, though,
entertainers. Yeah.
is that I really believe that the biggest consumers of women rappers, of those that are of that ilk, that are like really rapping, are men. I think men consume that style of female rap more than women do.
I would love to see the numbers on that. I'm inclined to almost agree with you. I just don't know.
Yeah, I don't have
but
those,
I think
but I it's because that's how my stats are.
Right, exactly. But what I think is because these women are fitting into fantasies of like male archetypes or male archetypes of women, right? I always say, like, as dope as Lil Kim was still, her image was still the figment of Biggie's imagination.
As much as I hate to admit it, Biggie and Cameron wrote Lil Kim's hits.
Okay, but that's what I'm saying.
Exactly.
So her image was a figment of a male imagination.
You're 100% right.
And then served as the blueprint for all of these other women. So we've given kind of passes to these women in the past because we were like, this is women empowerment. They're twerking to, like, you know, be in their own body.
But at
whatever
the same
case
time,
is.
the labels are the ones controlling what music you put out. So really, it's still a figment of a man's imagination.
Exactly. That's the point I was going to make. Exactly.
And it's like me and Amani created this whole women's empowerment curriculum, and it's we always quote Rhapsody and that, like, I'm never going to sit here and hate on another woman, and I'm not. I'm just going to say, like, it's time for there to be a shift.
There needs to be a shift. There needs to be more balance.
Because I'm seeing women in school, or young girls in school, and these are their role models. This is their life. This is what they aspire to be. Mm-hmm. Someone that gets impregnated by someone rich, and they don't have to try or think, they just have to be pretty. Yeah. And on God, I swear to you, that is what I see.
But no, I mean,
it's not.
I think like, a lot of people see it as well. You know what I'm saying? It's where we've been headed because we've been devoid of any sort of integrity in our cultural expression, right? There's nothing that's grounding us to spirituality. There's nothing that's grounding us in terms of political awareness. There's nothing that's grounding us to be the best version of ourselves.
It's people that are doing it for money versus the music.
Exactly.
Because you look at a lot of these artists, and they were speaking about this on JBP too, and we'll get into this soon too, but it's like how a lot of people's entryway is through music.
Yep.
So that they can go do some other stuff.
Exactly.
Like, let's not talk like Rihanna and Cardi and all them actually are going to stay in music. Like, they were trying to get to the bag.
Exactly.
And now they're like, I don't ever have to do music again if I don't want to.
It shifted the standard by which we judged artists, right? You can't be a singer unless you can sing.
Yeah.
Right? As an R&B artist, the main criteria is whether or not you can actually sing. And that's what people, okay, you have a voice, we get it. That has not been that for rap in decades almost.
Yeah. No, you don't even have to be able to perform.
You don't even have to be, you just
don't
create
have to be
a record.
Someone can write your raps. You can sit in the booth and punch in every single bar, and then you can have your rap over your vocals on a stage. So you're doing it because you have this image that people are able to morph and mold to perpetuate whatever narrative they want to continue pushing, and then it trickles into every little girl's brain, and that's what they aspire to be.
Let her cook.
It's just...
Let her cook.
It's so frustrating.
Speaking of with Breath of Fire, talking about.
Oh, God.
Do we just want to talk about that really quickly?
Yeah,
just the conclusion of it? Like, what are your takeaways from... So Breath of Fire was a documentary that we talked about a couple weeks back. This woman became a student of a guru, so to speak, and they started running a yoga practice that amassed hundreds, if not thousands of followers, monetized it, and the way the documentary presents it is almost like they didn't believe any of it, that it was all like charlatans and scammers, and they really focused on this particular woman who was white, adopted yoga. Guru Jagat. Guru Budget was the Indian guy who we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
Guru Jagat was the white woman who everybody was like, okay, does nobody see that this white woman's wearing a turban and using...
But they demonized her so much more than the other guy who was out here raping children and selling drugs and running a cult. Yes, it's bad that cultural appropriation is bad. But I put it below. Like, I'm just like, dude, this guy is still being honored and his stuff is still being taught on like Gaia.
Yeah.
You know?
Really,
because here's the thing, Kundalini yoga is ancient. Okay.
Yes.
So it's like, it's not like this guy invented Kundalini yoga. He made the westernized version of Kundalini yoga. So anytime you go to Kundalini yoga, you see all these
he made the McDonald's version of it, and then we're mad at him for making McDonald's.
He blended together Sikhism, like, but just the chants.
Yes.
And then Kundalini poses, and then his other whatever inklings were going on in his brain.
Yeah.
And it morphed into
completely fabricated.
Right,
like,
but he moved as a cult leader and had people living inside the cult. He had his own security guard. He had all of his own. Like,
I mean, it was a legit cult.
The schools in India are still there, where there was like 500 cases of sexual abuse that was reported.
I mean, it was wild.
It was really bad.
This woman kind of did an offshoot version of what was happening with this guy.
She just did like any person that goes to yoga now. You might choose a hot yoga, you might choose vinyasa, you might choose hatha, or you might choose Kundalini yoga. She was teaching a yoga class similar to that, except for it was a little bit more strict. You couldn't drink alcohol, you couldn't do drugs, like you had to wear white. So it was like, but it was like a celebrity like fad, you know? So like everyone in LA was doing it, but it turns out she actually was kind of hypocritical in that she wasn't even healthy herself. She had all these health problems. She weighed 250 pounds and like.
Well, I think that was after they started exposing her for being a fraud,
right? Yeah,
and having like all of those issues because they started discovering that the guy she claimed she learned from was a complete piece of shit.
Yeah,
and then they started looking at her and her other guru,
and that she never even met him,
and she didn't meet him.
Yeah.
So it was on the heels of the media and the press saying, "Hey, you might be a fraud if you're not canceling this guy. You guys are defending this guy who is being considered a sexual."
But she was mostly just a talking head and a puppet for what they wanted to do because she was easier because her guru was like a Jewish man. He wasn't Indian either. He just had a beard.
It just ended up being just very this conflicting scam. She was horrible to her employees. She was berating her employees. They just revealed all this dirt.
Yeah. Again,
you know what I'm saying? But it was just
I was not team her at all. Like, this messed up, but I also was just like taking note of like, wow, they really dragged her a lot worse than like this person who committed felonies. Like, this is just gross what she's doing. This is like deplorable, inhuman what this other guy's doing.
For sure.
And it's just
100%.
really frustrating when you're like,
and they're still both on Gaia. Like, look at that. Like,
but she died as a young person. As like 41.
That's what they were alluding to in the documentaries, that when all of this stuff started coming to the surface, she just started to let herself go more so than whatever was already happening.
Yeah,
and then that's what led to her death.
She had blood clots. She had to get a surgery. Like, it was such an avoidable cause of death. But yeah, I think when I look at it, because I am obsessed with yoga, I go all the time, and it's I know it does good things for your health. So what it taught me, and I even spoke about this when I did my newsletter, I think is just like, you just have to use discernment when you do any sort of spiritual practice, because there are spiritual abusers out there that are going to exploit you at any time.
Stop looking for a leader. I mean, I think I know people need teachers, and spirituality is important to have a teacher, right? I think you should avoid instances where that teacher is somewhat deified. Yeah. And like that to me is already kind of like a signal. Like, you know, and I grew up Muslim. So like a big thing for us is you can't put pictures anywhere of like people who are like gurus or prophets. They don't have pictures. Right. So anytime I go to a non-Islamic spiritual place where there's pictures, I always feel uncomfortable. Right. But when you go to cults, what you notice about cults is that they always have a picture of the charismatic leader. So for me, that already, like, I recognize that as something that's off in terms of spirituality. But there's no telltale signs. Like, a lot of the people who are in the cult woke up and were like, I can't even believe I was in this shit. Like, so it's just one of those things that if you are a seeker, as they say, right? Somebody who's looking for spiritual truth, something who's looking for something beyond this life.
There's no place where you can just let your guard down completely and be like, I'm safe here to just let everything in. Like, I think you always have to move.
You need to focus more on the practice than the person who's guiding you or whatever, because they're humans at the end of the day.
Right.
They're fallible.
Humans
you
are
don't know what the fuck is
susceptible
going on in
yeah.
their household as they're teaching you all of this wisdom
What their
and
agendas
knowledge
are.
or what their agenda is. Like, it's just it gets very nasty. No different than the music industry, no different than the entertainment industry.
It sucks because it makes you feel like you can't trust anything,
Exactly.
especially in places that you're supposed to, like, that are rooted in and grounded in, oh, this is faith. This is about having
It creates
faith.
a cynicism that avoids that can keep you from your own spiritual awakening, and that's the sad part about
Mel
it.
Gibson and
Right?
Signs.
But Breath of Fire, you could check that out on Max. But then speaking of Max, they have a Dune series.
Yes.
A Dune series.
Yeah,
like
so
I'm
good.
super hyped about that. This takes place 10,000 years. 10,000 years, like that.
Before Paul Atreides is born.
Yeah.
Who's the main character? Who's cling, cling, cling.
I fucking love Fingerling Potato.
I like that actor.
We
He's
could
a
create,
good
we could create a
kid.
whole
We
soundtrack of
should.
his cool lines. But,
No, but-
we
but-
saw episode 1. What were your takeaways from episode
So
1?
this is the only reason I put it on the board was that I drew the parallel. I knew this is that it's all a metaphor for what goes on in the Arab world and white colonization of.
Yeah, I knew that just from the words they use, like lisan al-ghaib. Al-ghaib means like to be unseen, right? But then they call him the Mahdi, which in Islam is like a spiritual leader to come at the end of time, like a Christ figure like that. So I kind of figured that played into it. I didn't know to what
It's
extent.
pretty. I mean, like it's
Yeah.
pretty obvious because
Yeah.
Dune, Arrakis is like this very. It's in a desert, right?
Yes, exactly.
But yeah, no, I mean, if there's everything has like a parallel. So I thought that was really interesting, and I was just the timing of when Dune 1 and 2 came out. We were trying to like back trace it.
Yeah.
Back and be like, well, this was 2022. What was going on?
Like, what was the
politically?
historical context when he wrote the book? The original
Yeah. So the book was written in
1965.
Yes. And so in 1965, we found out what was going on was I was trying to figure out if it had anything to do with what was going on in Palestine.
Right.
At that time, Palestine wasn't really being recognized as its own state like it is now.
Exactly.
So it wouldn't have been that. But suffice it to say, there was been colonization going on because of the oil. And so the spice represents fuel. It's space travel fuel. So it's obviously symbolic of oil. And then, having all of these different planets or all these different people are going into Arrakis and governing it and being able to control the spice. And it's the same
So
thing.
it's a critique on colonization,
Yes.
imperialism, extraction of resources,
Yes.
right?
And then also pairing in spirituality. And then you have
Yes.
the Bene Gesserit. And so people are kind of like ideating that might be maybe like people like the CIA or other, like maybe anyone that maybe is like puppeteering or like trying to control
part of
the
like
powers that
intelligence.
be.
Yeah, intelligence background
Yeah,
and stuff
exactly.
like that. So it's like, I'd be very interested in like learning the life of the author.
Yeah,
If he was like
same.
military intelligence, like the dude who wrote 1984. He was military intelligence, right?
Dang, we
Orwell.
should we should explore it because I haven't done like a super deep dive on it.
Nah, but
wanna
I mean, it's
explore
important
more.
because there are parallels there. I mean, I think I was looking at it in YouTube. There's a whole bunch of parallels that talk about Dune in the Middle East and like they do the breakdown. So we should.
But a
watch
lot
some
of times
those.
science fiction does that because they're trying to make a critique on what's going on in the world in a way that
I mean,
won't
all
get
of
them,
that. Like Star Wars, the dark side was the Nazis. Like,
I do. See
you know
that.
what I'm saying?
That's
Like
pretty
it's
obvious,
like
yeah.
but science fiction is always a good medium for contemporary commentary.
They do it in a way so that they won't. Because a lot of times in certain places, like I remember in Spain, I was in like a Spain literature class, like you couldn't speak out against the government or you'd be killed.
Right.
So you have to do it in a way that it's like subtle enough.
It's subversive.
Yeah.
Subversive. Yeah. That's the way to go nowadays.
Okay.
Nightlife hoes. You want to tackle that real quick? You want to get your shit off for the nightlife hoes?
Shit.
Or should we just go to introvert extrovert and just like wrap this up?
Let me try to think of what I was getting pissed off. Oh, I mean, I guess it kind of ties in. So I was listening to the Joe Budden podcast, and they had Bernice Burgos on there, and I was getting pissed off because Mel is like the only female on that pod, and so they always drag her, and for like anything that she says, just basically being intelligent, they'll just like always drag her, dogpile her. And then Bernice Burgos comes in, and I understand like she probably had like, hey, like I won't talk about this. I won't talk about that.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
like, I understand that. But like, she was like, yeah, you know, I've always just been that girl, you know, like I don't ever have to
like
talk.
vapid
I don't
interview.
have to do anything. I want to go teach kids. And like Mel's like, and teach them what? Like what
Nah,
are you gonna?
I was listening to that and I almost fell out of my chair when she said that she wanted to teach kids.
Yeah, but the thing that I took away was like, yeah, you know, I went into karaoke and like multiple people from record labels said they wanted to sign me, you know? And I'm just like...
That's when you had enough. Like,
because it's literally exactly what I'm saying.
Exactly.
If you come in the package and you have a following, if you don't give a fuck about... She's like, I thought about it, but no, I just want to make my pajamas. Like, it's just like, this is what we've watered down music to and what... I mean,
this is what we've watered down women to in certain instances.
I'm like, because they're upholding her to this, they're pedestalizing her because instead of she was just a bartender, which is at a strip club, which is like, you're not dancing, but there's not like a big difference.
Right.
But that she was like, I said I was only going to go for 5 years and then and she was making 30 grand a night. You know what I'm saying? And I'm just like, what the fuck am I doing out here? Like, I'm fucking busting my fucking ass to like try and make the world a better place and like uplift women. And you're out here fucking serving people drinks with like fucking titty tassels and making 30 grand. Like, this is fucking crazy.
It really is.
But I'm chill. I'm a chill.
Yeah.
So that you can go 5 years from now and be pedestalized for making comfy pajamas, and that makes you like this like trailblazing like women. Like, oh my god, you guys applaud her for not like moving into porn and instead making lingerie. Like, what an icon.
Yeah,
like,
what a groundbreaking
and it was just
effort.
Fucking irritating because I'm like, Mel comes in here every day. She's super intelligent, and I get it. Like, we had this talk, like they have to do it for the pod, but I kind of took it from like a larger sense of like. Mm-hmm. We need to strive for better, people. As much money as we can make off our fucking
normalize
ass.
that, right? We need to normalize like enhancing human behavior instead of reducing ourselves to the lowest common denominator for the sakes of clicks and views. That's what we're ultimately
for the
talking
sake
about.
like of money. Like, bro, and the thing that Joe was saying is like she wasn't even good at making drinks. Like,
he did say that.
And she doesn't talk. So
Yeah.
she's not social, funny, witty. She's not good at her job. She's just such a good looking girl that she
Right.
doesn't have to do anything. But because she's independent, we're like, wow, this is like a woman we really need to aspire to be.
Yeah.
How to
that's
get
nasty
so many
work.
ass injections that we never have to work or think again, but we can do it on our own terms.
So like,
done it, people.
where do we set the line in between Bernice Burgos and a Cardi B?
I mean, I think Cardi B's talented. Like, Cardi B's a fucking talented person.
Right.
And she worked her fucking ass off. Like, Cardi B has done fucking everything she could to get herself out of the space where she's in. Okay. Yes, she did she did dancing.
She did
and stuff,
nightlife, yeah.
But she fucking cultivated an audience based on her personality.
Yes.
And then she went on
That's
Love and
the
Hip Hop.
distinction,
And she
yeah.
dropped like 4 mixtapes in a year or some crazy stuff. She invested her own money into it. Like, she did work to do
Right,
that. Like,
right.
while I don't think her music is like high vibrational, like, dude, Cardi B wrote, she
No, I mean, I
recorded,
think
she
the
performed.
personality part, the charisma part, like the hustle,
She
the work
did that
ethic.
shit.
Yeah,
and
think
I don't
that's
know what Bernice Burgos did. Maybe she does. Maybe she is really smart as an entrepreneur. I think she must be to be able to hustle people at BB. I don't know. The fact that Joe was dropping $1,500 at BB
First of all, for a man to drop $1,500 on BB, I mean,
is whatever.
It's a lot.
Like, he must have had like 80 pairs of garments, like BB. But I just, it frustrates me because I'm like, we will never be valued for our thoughts is how it feels. And it gets really discouraging. And it's like, it sucks because I have a lot of thoughts. But
you do have a lot of thoughts. Speaking of which, introvert, extrovert, before we get out of here.
Okay. Are you, do you, tell me, do you think you're an introvert or extrovert?
I think I've done my personality test and I'm both. I'm an introvert, extrovert.
How can you be both?
Because you can be. Because my personality is the protagonist. So I'm comfortable. I'm just as comfortable externally as I am internally. to my preference, it's introvert and.
Tell me about your, like, do you like socializing?
I like socializing. I can socialize. I prefer to socialize with people I'm extremely comfortable with and safe with, because then that's when I feel like I'm the most authentic and amplified version of myself, right? I notice it in my conversations with my best friend, Steph, like shout out Steph Reed. My brain works differently. I'm able to just flex a little bit more and be like the person I want to be, because I'm around the person who
supports
has literally known me forever. But it's one thing to be supported. It's another thing you're with somebody who can literally historically contextualize you. And I can do the same for him. So if I had a preference, I would prefer to be doing a lot of cool things only with the people I really, really, really fuck with. You know what I'm saying? But if I have to pop out and be seen and see people, I can do that and be comfortable. But I'm just as comfortable doing that as being in my house 100% by myself, nobody around, and being cool with that. So I kind of dabble in the worlds, but I do have the presence of keeping my. No,
you're good at like being out, and you can be out in public, but you can also.
But I was telling you the other day, because we kind of had a conversation similar to this. The reason why is because as a kid, I was always in predominantly white spaces, so I had to develop the skill set
to be
of being comfortable, socializing so that I don't make other people uncomfortable, right? And just navigating through spaces that I'm not comfortable in. So I developed the skill. Doesn't mean I developed the desire for it. You know what I mean? But you're just like, you're anti-people.
No, I mean, I used to drink a lot. And so all I wanted to do was socialize. Drinking by yourself is not vibes, because I wanted an excuse to drink, and I liked fucking with people.
Yes.
So I liked putting myself in a situation where I could get fucked up and literally be so uninhibited, that I could say anything to anyone and see what the reaction was. Like, it was like watching my own reality show from my vantage point.
Dance, puppets, dance.
And I would do that. And then now I'm like sober. So it's like, that's a vastly different reality. And further, I am so vulnerable in the space that I'm in right now that I absorb everyone's everything, and I feel like I'm always on acid. Like, that's how I feel.
That's wild.
Or like mushrooms, you know? You know what I'm saying? Or like,
it's just like a heightened level of awareness that makes you empathetic to everything.
I can see I can see too much of people, and I don't feel comfortable with that. Like when you're drunk, you see nothing of people. They're just what you want them to be. Right. Because you're just like, whoa, this person over there. But when you're like how I am right now, it's like, I can see when I say something, your eye moves and you're looking there. I can see a tiny twitch in your face and sense discomfort. I can see like your mouth move a little bit and see like I can see these tiny little movements in people to know how they're feeling and what they're thinking, and it's uncomfortable.
Oh, you're becoming a mentalist.
I've been a fucking mentalist. That's probably why I started drinking in the first place. I was like,
it's a lot, but. We have to wrap this up.
Yes.
Ratchet and Woke podcast. You got the super condensed version today. I think it went well.
No, it did. It did. It wasn't super condensed.
Covered a lot of ground.
Yeah, it was a full hour.
Find us on Instagram or YouTube, Ratchet and Woke podcast. Email us questions, comments, topics, ratchetandwokepodcast@gmail.com. Unlearn the world.
Lil M Sizzle.
And we will see you next time. Have a great holiday, whatever you celebrate. Make sure you give to Hip Hop for Change on Giving Tuesday, December 3rd, when this is coming out. And
No, this is coming out tomorrow.
Oh shit, word.
But
it is
coming
out December 3rd. Give to Hip Hop for Change. We out of here.
Or give to some indigenous people, please.
Yes.
Please.
We're out of here.